This podcast was made possible by our members on armchairhistory.tv. Use code ARMCHAIRCHATS for 60% off of your first month.
Just shifting a little bit, we're talking about performance, and we're talking about a couple colleagues that you've got, like Chris the Redcoat. I saw a picture on, I think it was on Twitter or something, of you attending the premiere of the Sudbury Devil. And that kind of goes into, it reminded me of, especially because it goes into not reenacting, but having those historical impressions and detailed uniforms and that sort of thing. And something I've heard about the film, too, is that they took the authenticity very seriously.
They did,
But you attended the premiere of it. For those who don't know about the film or who made it, and what your opinions are on it, I'm curious if you could give a bit of an introduction. Obviously, you didn't make it, but you were there on the premiere. You know about it more than me.
Yeah. So the Sudbury Devil is a 17th century horror film made by Aton Films, Andy Rakich. He's a good friend of mine. We've known each other actually for quite a while now. Through YouTube, we met, much like how you and I met. Long story short, without going into too many spoilers and without launching into the full review, which I have a video about, obviously, the entire idea is a witch finder is hired, is brought in by a town because it's this guy says there's spoopum in the woods, and they're like, whoa, spoopum in the woods, that ain't Christian. So they go into the woods, and as it turns out, there's some heckin' spoopum stuff happening in the woods, and there's a lot of themes with sexuality. There's a lot of themes with violence. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of sexual violence in the movie. It is bloody. It is explicit. It is dramatic. It is exceedingly well acted. The material culture is really good. The music is spectacular. I cannot even express how much I love that soundtrack. But yeah, it's really good, but it's also definitely not a movie for everyone, specifically because of how visceral some of that violence can get, and because of how explicit certain sexual scenes are. There's actually not a lot of nudity in the movie, but there's definitely a lot of sexuality, and I'll just leave it at that. If you're a minor, then don't watch the movie, and if you are a sensitive boy, do some reading up, do some research into the movie before you...
Brandon, what is a sensitive... What is a sensitive boy? What would be that type of...
someone who doesn't like the spoopums too much, There's no jump scares or anything. It's just more really anxiety inducing, a lot of the atmosphere.
Fair enough,
of the movie. It's kind of reminiscent of The Witch, if you're familiar with that movie, because it's all done in the period appropriate pronunciation. So, they don't say, oh, yes, welcome to the Christian colony of Massachusetts. They say, oh, the good Christian colony. It's all, in the time. It's really, really authentic in that way. So if you enjoyed The Witch, there's probably a lot for you to find in this movie, but it's a very different movie from The Witch as well. And why do I have a feeling that you're going to ask me about the venue of this premiere?
Oh, I was not going to ask you about it, but I remember seeing something where it was hosted in a devil worshipping thing, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, it was premiered at the Satanic Temple.
Right.
A lot of people had a lot of interesting things to say about that. Personally, we went around the place and I checked out some of the artifacts that they had and whatnot. It's definitely not for me. It's not my vibe. I think that the whole Satanism thing is honestly just very silly on many different levels. It feels to me more like a social movement that is disguised as a metaphysical set of beliefs, and I don't go down for that kind of thing. I think that I don't like that. But yeah, that's really about it. Though some people actually did take away, I think mainly, honestly, the regulars of the Satanic Temple, they were joking about it. They seem to actually take away a pro-satanic message from the movie, but from my viewing, it's I don't know how you guys got that. They're doing heckin' blood ritual stuff. What are you talking about? This is horrible. I thought the only good guy was the one that a lot of people thought was the worst character for that reason. But again, I don't want to get into spoiler territory. Maybe in a year from now, when the movie's been out for a while, I can do that.
What's the best way to watch the movie? Is he still just doing theaters and stuff for now.
Yeah. Right now, I think he's still basically traveling around the country, and they're doing showings like even around the world. If you pay attention to like Atunche's YouTube page and to his Facebook page, they're posting like new showings all the time, all over the place in like major population centers. So it's like as of right now, I think that's like the best way to see it. I want to say that they're looking at streaming services as well, like eventually, but it's definitely not a movie that's gonna release on YouTube. If it did, it would either have to be like
Oh man,
incredibly restricted, or they'd probably even have to like cut some stuff out. And knowing Andy, he probably doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, and I feel like with projects like if you put all that money and time and effort into it, there's something that like maybe I would have felt different about this when I first started on YouTube. But if you build a project like that to give it away for free on YouTube, like I feel like I would if I built a whole movie like that, I would value it more to put it up somewhere where someone, even if it's just a couple dollars, to just if I think people sometimes also forget the amount of effort or don't realize for a YouTuber to make a movie and for it to look. And I've seen like even the trailer, I went into it thinking, oh, this will be something I can make fun of. Look at YouTubers doing, and I looked at it and went, oh, actually,
that's the thing. Is like you know, going into a movie like that. You know, I drove out to Massachusetts. Not as much because like, oh, I'm just that excited to watch the movie. I thought it was going to be good. I was excited to see it, but like if it was just to watch the movie, I would not have driven 14 hours to make that happen, you know? I was there to support my friend in his project. But that being said, like going into a movie like this, you're always going to have certain expectations. Oh, okay, it's a YouTuber-made movie, it's low budget, shot in the woods, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, there are certain expectations of quality that come with that.
Yeah.
You can't blame it for not meeting, like, certain standards, but because it's a low budget and everything, but you're going to have those expectations. The movie blew me away. There's, like, maybe, you know, like, 2 or 3 moments in the movie where it felt like that, like, lower budget, like, oh, yeah, you can tell this was, like, not a Hollywood production or whatever, but, like, for most of the movie, it just felt so professional. It nailed it. Again, I don't want to like go into specifics by listing off individual scenes and such, but a lot of times it just really nailed what it was trying to do, and it felt like something a lot more than what it is on paper, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm always rooting for YouTubers doing their own projects and trying to just do more than what's on the platform, especially given that YouTube can be a difficult environment sometimes to either make the type of content you want to do or fund larger content or projects. You're kind of stuck to a single format for the most part. And if you deviate out of that format, you're not going to get the ad revenue or the sponsors or so that can be difficult to kind of explore out. So that's for him taking the risk and it paying off. It's just impressive to see. And I don't know the guy personally, but it's just cool. I'm always rooting for that.
Thanks for listening. To hear the full version of this chat, become a Sarge or Officer tier member over on armchairhistory.tv. Use code ArmchairChats for 60% off of your first month.